So it's not just, using the manpower in Pittsburgh that knows how to get our door swipe thing working and letting and spending, many hours on the phone, eventually just flying the person down here to help us. When someone writes code so that you don't have to buy a third-party thing like Traction Guest, how do we all share it?
Right.
Yeah, I think, Diane, thank you. I think that I contribute to this idea too, and I think, Adam, you're right. Manpreet works with our JCC, and yeah, we need to have a listing of either people or JCCs that are either doing certain things, or like you said, sort of a board that asks the question about who's doing what, and so that things can move along more efficiently and optimally between meetings or so. My view of Traction has changed over time. Obviously, I was one of the first to get them involved in this whole idea, and they've taken it into a little bit different direction. So if they're going to be involved in some way, I think it needs to be focused, because they will, from my experience, drive it away from things that we really need and more towards things that they think that they can do, which may be the same, but I have not had that experience lately. So yeah, I mean, we're willing to share, in Adam's example, what we've done on the guest side, and we've made it fairly straightforward and integrative with Traction Rec. And certainly, we're fine with offering it either free or at a low cost. Our more concern is some of the expenses that we're spending to do the things that Traction Rec is not willing to do, on the camp side and also on the fitness side. So, but in any case, talking about this knowledge base, I think that's what we need to do. Looking at what Gabe did is fine, but I think it needs to be a little bit more, we're using Salesforce. We can do a database rather than a spreadsheet to do this as far as the format's concerned. But I think it's two different things. One is what the JCCs have to offer and what is needed by specific JCCs.
And I'm just going to give you guys a little bit more perspective in some recent conversations that we've been having, not only on the group of us that kind of help facilitate these conversations, but equally with an approach that we've been taking with Traction on all of our behalf. Because I hear you, Fred, I hear you loud and clear, and I agree with you. And I also have a little bit of an inside perspective from really Greg and Laura too, because there's so many of us that don't do things the same way. Yeah. So they do struggle with where do they put their focus and how many, how can we help the most people in whatever they're focusing on. And granted, they don't have a conversation with us about that. They just do it. And that's part of the problem. Fred, you brought it up.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. If they can't, that there's a difference, and if they can't resolve the difference, at least do it in an open environment rather than the back. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No. You're absolutely right. And we've been not quite as long as you have been in, Fred, on Traction, but have been in this relationship for a lot of years. And Adam mentioned guest and access control, and not every JCC needs that. So but we were able to help him, and it was just because we all started to talk, and those kind of things happen. So we, again, and Gabe's on the call now, we need some kind of forum. But the sharing of, what I would say, it's one thing to share who's the expert in a certain area that they may have found a way to do something. But the other thing, and Gabe, this is also for your benefit, is kind of like, what did we invest in, right? In the way of I'm just going to call it programming or enhancement or something that we created, a flow or whatever we created inside of the environment, and how can other JCCs across the country benefit from it? Or what can Traction do to help other JCCs across the country with it? Because, you know, they may still not find out that Pittsburgh did that or San Francisco did that or whoever did that, right? They still may not find out, no matter how great of a platform that Gabe in JCCA helps us with, they still may not get it. And we have to figure that out, and we all have to work together on that, because none of us need to spend more money that JCC, you know, on the other side of the country just did the exact same thing and spent, you know, $20,000 on. Why would we do that? Why don't we share with it? And that's what you're getting at, Adam. So Gabe, you know, we're talking more than, yeah, we want resources and staff to be able to connect, but it's a lot bigger strategically about how we can work together and share things with each other, and it involves Traction. Maggie and Heather, you've been quiet, so we want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, a couple of thoughts in listening to some of the background, which I appreciate, but I feel like from a really simple perspective, I'm here because I do want to share and I want to learn from other JCCs. I personally feel like I have a good channel with Traction Rec. So when I have a Traction Rec support question, I will go to them. But what I don't have in them is that camaraderie of JCC to JCC. So for me, kind of tying in some sort of platform with Traction Rec is less of an importance than just creating a dynamic, not a spreadsheet, like a dynamic portal or some platform where we can all share, we can post, you know, I'm envisioning every JCC has a profile where perhaps there's a standard set of questions and you do share, like, what are the third-party software applications that you have? So everyone can view that, but then a place where you can share and say, oh my gosh, I just built this amazing flow. Here it is, just in case anyone else has a similar use case. I would love to share reports. I mean, there's so many things. So yeah,
It's good.
I think I would love to have it be on Salesforce, but I think the only common kind of community org we have would be Traction Rec's community. And it sounds like maybe that wouldn't be an easy low-hanging fruit for us to jump into. So then I just go to, like, is there some sort of a Google forum or some other platform where we can all come together, share ideas, pin documents, searchable, all those kind of things.
Maggie, you look excited.
I am curious.
Oh, Hannah, go ahead, Hannah.
Hi, sorry. I am curious. I always wondered why we never used Trailhead, or like I forget what it's called, like the Trailhead Academy, where people post. We use it for NPSP. They just merged it into that, but where you can go in, and it's exactly what you're saying, right? So like everyone can comment on each other. Someone can post and then you comment. I was always curious why we didn't do that. We originally have the Facebook group, but I feel like this is kind of like Salesforce set, and you can add files and comment on people. And I'm wondering if we should have a Traction Rec JCC group on that.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that is a great idea.
Is it called Trail? I don't know anything about it, Hannah. Is it inside of Trailhead?
Let me.
Yeah, it used to be a part of Power of Us. It used to be like one of the user forums, right, Hannah? Like within Power of Us.
That's right.
Yeah, it's now called
the
group, Trailblazer. Right? Yeah, it's called the Trailblazer Community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good thought.
Gabe, you writing that down? We need to get Gabe on there. Gabe's not a Salesforce guy, but maybe one of you that's versed in it, Hannah, Heather, whoever, maybe you guys can do a sub conversation with Gabe and kind of show him what you're thinking, because that's what we've been talking about, Gabe. it can't really be a spreadsheet. It has to be dynamic. It has to be a living place for us to share. It has to be, coordinated in some way, all of that stuff. So that the way you guys are describing it sounds perfect.
If you'd like, I can share my screen as well. I do have, to be honest, I haven't really used it, but I know it's there and I'm supposedly a part of groups. So let me just, if you don't mind, I can share.
Go for it.
Sorry, my computer's being weird, so there's really these black dots up here. But basically you have specific groups. So it's in the trailhead where you go to take any trail. This is like the same, the badges and all that. You can hit community, and then you can go through different steps. So groups, I don't even know what I'm a part of, to be honest, but we could have a specific group that was Traction Rec JCC, and then I'll just choose one so you can see, you can get like daily digest emails, but people post and then you can comment on it, like it, share it, just like you can in Facebook. It's pretty similar. And then I think, I believe you can add resources. So you can add like articles or Word documents, stuff like that.
That sounds like a perfect place for us to start.
Yeah, that looks great.
Yeah.
The only thing would be
believe
if we
also-
could also, have some way of organizing it, so it's not just a list of questions and activity, if it can be organized into topics or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how the
Yeah,
structure
yeah.
works. Hannah, Heather, I don't know how it works, but
So it can be sorted, so it can
I'm
be
not-
sorted.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about topics, stuff like that. I do know at least you can make groups. I believe you can make groups like private, public, not listed, that kind of stuff. If
could
we
you
don't
do
want,
subgroups?
anyone else joining in.
Do you know if you could do subgroups? Like
To
if
be
this,
honest, I haven't. I don't think so, but I haven't used it enough to really know.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think it's a good thing to at least start exploring. I like it. But
Yeah, there are topics, but I don't think they're connected to a group. It's more like universal.
okay.
So I think if someone posts creates a post or does a question and they use a hashtag, then that's your topic. And then someone else in our
Oh, there
group
you
could
go.
search the hashtag. So it just is a matter of everyone kind of getting on the same page in their use of the group. But then I think, Hannah, also, when you were back one screen, or when you were actually in one of your groups, can you go back there for a second?
Yeah.
So where it says sort and you're on recent activity, what are the other options? Oh, created date, okay. But you can search feed. So, I mean, there are ways for you to use it in a way that suits your own needs. If you're just, searching by a keyword or searching by a hashtag.
Yeah, we would have to
It
have,
would be interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we have to have sort of a glossary of keywords or groups, that people could look at. Otherwise, it's like you were sort of intimating, you start creating things just from people's creativity, and it would get lost.
I mean, it's definitely, and I would assume it's included with all of our licenses. Someone would have to adopt Gabe. So he could come on, but we could play around with this, even if it's in a closed, a smaller group, just to see what we're thinking before, and maybe, sometime in the spring, we bring it back to the greater group of what we found, or if we find something else from that. I mean, Salesforce, Salesforce, a gold mine of different apps and stuff. Maybe something will come up and recommendation for us to be able to use. And, you know, we can give Gabe the reins to look for something.
So I was actually going to mention that when I started, one of the things that was evident was the old platform for sharing resources, information, jcca.me, was sort of well past its technological life and all kinds of other things. And actually, just this morning, we announced to all the execs that we have a new platform that we just launched. And there's a Traction Rec page on it. It has some basic stuff already on it. So there is a place to put stuff. It's not integrated as you're talking about with the discussions. There is also a new feature there which allows anyone to allows you to search all of the emails on the discussion list from the past. So even if you weren't on the discussion list, and even if you were hired later or you're not subscribed to it, if you want to look up keywords in the Traction Rec discussion list. So not the same as what you're talking about, but there are a couple of additional features there. And the third thing I was going to add is that this exact kind of forum for all kinds of subgroups throughout JCCs, we looked during the process of getting a new platform, we wanted to integrate that feature. And what we discovered during that pretty in-depth research was you could either have a good sort of knowledge base, or you could have a good thing that looks like Facebook, basically, where it's just endless conversation and back and forth and hashtags, just like you're talking about. We were unable to find anything that actually integrated well, and as to Fred's point, sort of could organize it by itself in some ways, or that there was a good system for organizing. So it doesn't mean we're done, but we opted to go with a really good knowledge base, knowledge platform. And I'm thrilled to learn more about this for Traction Rec, and we'll see what else. But so that's kind of a live issue where we have some partial solutions to some of the things we're talking about. I wouldn't call it comprehensive, but and I'm happy to put the link in here in chat to that new resource center. You're welcome to log in there. It's not a secret. We're just sort of phasing in the launch. I'll put it in the chat.
I know Maggie wants to talk, but maybe that's something that maybe we can, you know, we're all on this call. Maybe we can regroup on a chat early in January, and invite anyone else that wants to do it and kind of explore some of these ideas. Go ahead, Maggie. She's been wanting to talk for a while.
No, I've just been taking it all in. Really, I think this is this is everything that I'm about as far as like documentation and training and support goes. Pretty much because of our integration to Salesforce, I completely switched roles into our customer support team because of all of this conversation. And we're still, I think, internally within JCC Chicago, figuring out how to share resources like this, let alone like the wider, nation. So I think it's all important. I think my couple of things to add and onto, random parts of the conversation would be like, I guess with our, similar, it sounds like to what all of you have said, like our relationship with Traction Rec has kind of ebbed and flowed, but something that I feel like has been an ongoing trend is, we don't always find out when there's like a limitation or a hot fix or another client experienced this error or whatever, like it seems like there's constantly something like that comes up where it's like, oh yeah, we're aware of this error, there's a hot fix coming. And it's like, well, I don't know about it until it gets escalated to us, and or even like the release notes are just like so long, and I just to like go back in and find, oh, did my hot fix I requested 6 months ago ever happen? Is it working? Is it like, it's very hard to manage the way that they send out their communication. And for me, I would like if another JCC would ping me and say like, hey, if anyone uses payment arrangements, this error is happening right now, like that'd be great. Cause then I can just be like, oh, great. We found out before we had that impact. So, maybe that's like a different column of the forum as far as like the documentation and the how-tos of like how to, extend and expand our systems, but also like we are limited by what Traction Rec puts into play. And if a release comes out or Salesforce does a release that messes something up, we don't know. I feel like I don't always find out about it until it's too late.
Until it happens.
Yeah, it's really true.
I
That's just,
totally agree.
that's been a common issue for, I'd say, a couple of years. And, they've referred us to their community and, you need to check that. And like you said, Maggie, even when you check it, it's hard to, focus on it. And so, that's something that we, if we're going to bring Traction Rec into these meetings for part of them, at least, that needs to be really loud and clear.
Yeah. And I think too, like the training and documentation piece, I know I actually met with Hannah when she was doing their integration and like shared these, like I had created, I think over like 120 pages of training packets for our internal processes. But the base work of what I started with was I can't even, my brain's not working today, what the testing sheet that they gave us, the testing,
Like UAT.
yeah, so I started with the UAT and then I matched it up with what was in the community. And of course, like you can't copy and paste anything from the community. So I was like on 3 screens with my hoodie up, like, it was like a mess. And so when I met with Hannah, I was like, here, this is what I started with, and it was
amazing. Thank you again.
Yeah, of course. No. So it's like, obviously we wanted to add our own like branding and business process and things like that. But the base work of what I started with was universal. So, and we haven't like converted into any sort of like L&D system or anything like that. But I would love to hear from JCCs that are. So all of this is great. And that's my initial thoughts.
I mean, that's a great
Yeah,
story
nice.
for what we're trying to accomplish. And you did it, it was more of, it grew from a couple conversations probably you had with Hannah, and then you guys were able to share that resource. I mean, that's what we want, I'm going to call it globally for all of us to be able to tap into, not just the people that we know.
Right.
And we need to find something. And, Gabe, we all are on Salesforce. Salesforce, that's what this is all about, communicating with people and touching people. And, there's got to be something there for us to be able to use versus going on yet another platform. So I really like Hannah's idea to at least start exploring that. And, just a little side commercial with conversation that I had with Laura Gilchrist and Jason Dobrolecki. We started the conversation with, these are some of the things that we're struggling with. I really did start that with them and said, I know we can all do better. And, the things that we want to find out about after it's too late, or don't know that they're working on, or don't know that some other JCC is already doing this. And why are we spending money on the same thing? And all of that stuff. I mean, I kind of unloaded on them and said, we want to bring you and invite you into some of these meetings, but, we're all a little apprehensive on the environment, and we want to make sure that, we're all in this together and we're better together, that whole kumbaya type environment, that, that's our expectation of them. And some of us are struggling in that area, and that we're looking for a platform like this. So Fred, inviting them in isn't that they're in all the time, it's that we would invite them to a certain segment that we think it's important, but this is still our family to have these conversations and have candid conversations when they're needed. So I know they heard us because they've included us and reached out to us in Pittsburgh on a couple things that they knew we were already thinking about, that they've asked us to be part of a conversation with their developers. That has to happen across the board, but I know they heard us. They're starting to listen in a different way now. And we just have to keep that moving and keep moving forward together, because we can't go anywhere without them, but we also need them to be more of a team player with us. And they heard that. They really did hear that. I promise. Gabe, I don't know.
Well
if
said.
have
Thank you.
anything else. What's that?
I just said, well said. Thank you.
I didn't hear your last comment, Diane.
I just said, Gabe, do you have anything else? I mean, I know, you and Brad and Laura and I, we were kind of trying to figure out how to approach them and to kind of, and the other thing I said to them too, which I think is really important for every JCC that's in this situation, is that this is a moving forward conversation. all the baggage, all the whatever from back here has to be left so that we can be better moving forward. And, you know, Maggie and Hannah, that's a great success story of what we're talking about. And it even happened before we did anything. Like, that's what we're talking about. Or Adam and Pittsburgh, you know, us partnering with them and sending our IT person down, because she created code with somebody on Traction to help with the access control, and they're using it now. I mean, that kind of stuff should happen naturally in this world, and it's not. And that's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even with what Maggie gave me, I kind of spun off and made, you know, thousands of pages of my own based off of what she had. And now we've been meeting with other J's, and it's like, you know, it's a giving circle. We keep giving what we have. Like, I built off of Maggie, I give it to them, they build off of me, they move on. Like, there's got to be a way for us to share all of that.
Yep. Anything else? Gabe, this conversation has to continue. This is just the beginning of this conversation.
For sure, for sure. I mean, if we obviously don't have the answer yet, but divining one certainly seems very important. So,
and we even threw that out there to have this topic be a main topic in one of our main group calls, like to be a topic, and not really that anyone would share, similar to what we did on the last one. We just kind of told you where we were and kind of cultivated conversation because we wanted to learn. That maybe that's a topic of one of our discussions in the future, to see what people are thinking. We can throw out some of the things we're talking about that we've kind of uncovered, like the Trailblazer community idea and what JCCA has, and anything else that anyone comes up with. Might be a good conversation to have as a major group.
I think something too, I know we're kind of right at time, but something too that I feel like I've run into quite a few times is, you know, I mean, we had an added layer, as I know quite a few other JCCs did, that were integrating during COVID. So we did all of our builds when we were shut down. So really, like, what Traction Rec trained us on, supported us with, everything was like very theoretical. And we didn't, by the time we were in action and using it, Traction Rec was like, okay, our support has ended, you know, you can use general support now. And we were like, oh no, like the last 6 months don't count, like we were shut down, you know? So, and it's been like, we were working with a support person and, you know, it's fine now, but it was one of those things where it's like, because they aren't actually using it every day in the same way that we use it as users, I constantly find like, hey, I know you trained me how to build a program, but what happens when I run into this unique situation? Like, a lot of times I'm just constantly sending support tickets of like, hey, I have this unique request that I haven't. And it's like, I look in the community or whatever, but it's more of like an advanced level of training of like a 6-month check-in of like, they do their initial rollout to get you integrated and built out. But then it's like, you almost need like a second set of something beyond just general support cases. So I think, you know, that can be maybe in the forum piece as well, or in this, you know, support, but I think it's also just bringing Traction Rec back into that part of the conversation of, obviously, you know, I train people all the time. You can't train people on what you don't know that they're going to have a question about, but how can they, now they've done it so many times with so many J's, you would think that they would have more of those common questions documented somewhere. You know, I don't know, I'm kind of rambling, but.
No, you're hitting very important points. And just a sidebar for those of you that don't know Jason Dobrolecki, they have him placed in their organization because he is a JCC guy and he comes with that perspective. That was very strategic. That was a very strategic hire on purpose. I don't think we're using that resource collectively as best as we can. And it's also why we invited him to a call so that he could hear some of this, because he understands the JCC world in a way that nobody at Traction does. And it's a huge benefit for us once we start really using him. Huge.
I have to pop off here. I have another call, but I just want to say thank you and happy to continue the conversation and help out in any way.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Heather.
Bye, guys.
Bye, thank you.
Gabe, any
Thanks,
closing
everyone. I gotta go
remarks?
soon.
Because I gotta jump too.
No, I don't think so. I mean, lots of questions and I think some great suggestions here that we need to figure out prioritizing, looking into them, and how we do. Whose great brains, like on this call, are part of those conversations to figure out whether it's useful or, what's useful, what's not useful, et cetera. So that's great.
Anybody else wanna say anything before we jump off?
No, just Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks so
Yeah.
much. Good
Bye.
You
thoughts.
too.
Appreciate
Nice
it.
to see everybody.
Bye.
Bye.